Tips from a therapist who also loves Jesus. That's why these what if thoughts are consistently running through your mind, because it gives you safety. And like when you only look at the intent, but you don't correct the behavior, you're not setting boundaries, you build a little bit more self-confidence and strength in yourself, knowing that you are able to get past whatever hurdle this what if might bring. Welcome back, everyone, to the On Water podcast. I am your host, Jin Choi. What happens with your relationship with God on your own in that vertical before the horizontal? Yeah. I was so excited for this new generation that's coming up that's like so on fire for Christ. I want this to be an outlet for people to feel encouraged and to know that God can do so much more with your obedience than you can possibly believe. Welcome back, everyone, to the On Water podcast. My name is Jin. I am your host, and we are back for another episode. Today, I wanted to talk a little about something different. I have never talked about this before in the pod before. I recently have been going to a lot of like networking things and just talking to a lot of people about business and how faith can be integrated into your business. And it's very, very cool. I think I've learned a lot about how God has created us for the marketplace. And I've been spending a lot of time going out of my comfort zone and just honestly being the stupidest person in the room. Like, I think a lot of the times because like for me in my job, I'm by myself a lot more often. And because I just see clients, as a psychotherapist, it's very, maybe even like lonely, to say the least, in my job, because I don't really have any coworkers. It's just me and my client, and like my client isn't really my coworker. And so it's kind of hard to go through every single day, spending most of my time at work, and then just not have people to really be inspired by and talk to. And so I have been going to a lot of different things that like, a lot of networking things. And yeah, just realizing that so many people are using their skill, using their expertise, I've learned this word and I've been using it a lot, their sphere of influence. They've been using their sphere of influence to spread the gospel, but also just to be the light in this world. And I'm like, you know what, I really want to implement that in my job. Obviously, it's hard because as a therapist, you ethically can't incorporate your own faith values into your practice, because unless the client is aware of it and like consents to it before they even start therapy with you. But yeah, like trying to figure out what different ways to kind of integrate my area of expertise and kind of what I know about the world and about mental health and incorporating that into the faith space. And that's kind of what I wanted to do today, because I'm talking to a lot of different people. Like I've talked to people in the tech world, people in politics, people who are entrepreneurs, and they have given me a new sense of confidence in my knowledge. Like I always think like, oh yeah, like I have a lot of imposter syndrome, like majority of the time. And so when I hear people say that I am like intelligent or I know things, I thank you, Jamie. I'm like, whoa, like, and I kind of doubt it a little bit. I'm like, oh, I'm just like doing my job. Like I don't really know a lot. That's what I think. But yeah, these people have been really encouraging me, saying that my sphere of influence and my knowledge in the mental health space and in psychotherapy is needed amongst us as believers. Because I'm going to be honest, even when I was an undergrad a long time ago, but when I was doing my undergrad in psychology, even at that point, and that was like almost 10 years ago, like 8 years ago, is when I graduated from university, I think. Yeah, 8 years ago. But yeah, it was still considered like, there were still debates of whether it's considered a science because it's very, no, 2018. Yeah. I graduated in 2018, which was like, wait, am I doing the math right? 2018, how long ago was that? 20 plus 2 is 2020 plus 6. 8 years, yeah, yeah. I'm turning 30 this year. Yeah, dude. That's crazy, huh? And people usually graduate 21, 22. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. It's okay. It was crazy. No, no, no. You're good. Now everyone knows how old I am. It's okay. But anyways, so yeah, I graduated in 2018. And at that point, they were still kind of trying to figure out whether it was a science, like psychology was even a science, because measuring it and like being able to do like objective testing and like the research for it was, and even to this day, yeah, like it's not the same as like a math or like a, biology and something like that. It's not something that you can really see. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it's been difficult. This was where I was going. The transition from it even being legitimized in the world to it being legitimized in the church, like, I think the first transition is even easier than the second, because I've seen a gap between perspectives on whether mental health is something that is separate from spirituality or whether it is something that is like, it is one. And so like, and that's the two extremes that make it difficult, because there's some people who are like, hey, if the people who are like, oh, it's one, oh, you're depressed, or you're feeling down, and well, you might have a demon in you, or you might not have enough faith, or those things. And there's the other side of the spectrum where people think that, oh, if you're depressed, then go see a doctor. You don't bring that into the church, right? That's not a faith thing. It is a science thing. It is and then they separate it, and the integration portion is lacking. It's like, how do I, as a believer, even conceptualize mental health or mental illness while still believing in God? When I think that question in itself is a separation between faith and your mind, like your spirit and your mind, separating it so much, right? And I think being someone who has gone to a seminary for clinical counseling and learning integration, while also practically having to face integration of faith and mental health in my day-to-day work, I just wanted to share a few things. Like, I wanted this to be kind of like tips from a therapist who also loves Jesus. So it's not just a therapist. Like, you're not just getting, because one, this is just for consent and regulatory reasons. This is not real therapy. I'm not doing therapy with you. I am just giving you tips, right? Tips from a therapist who loves Jesus, right? Because I think to approach mental health concerns and struggles from the lens of someone who loves Jesus is so important when we walk as a Christian, right? It's how can we walk the life of Jesus? How can we follow the ways of Jesus while also wrestling with the battles within your mind? And how can we integrate those two together? And I just have 3 little things I wanted to address. And these are and I wanted to base it on like my real life experience as a therapist. Like, so I'm not just pulling this out of my butt. I am it is like concerns that my clients, especially Christian clients, because I have a lot of Christian clients too, they've actually brought forth to me about their lives and what they're struggling with. And these are just, I try to keep track of like very common statement, phrases, ideas that I bring into the therapy room and kind of bring it into the space to kind of give you some psychoeducation, give you some areas where your spirit and your mind can integrate within each other so that you don't feel like your mental health is so separate from God, while at the same time not feeling like one overpowers the other. And so, yeah, that's why I'm just going to share some tips, some little things that I've learned over my course of being a psychotherapist, but also, yeah, just even my personal experience and things that I've felt like has worked for me. But the first thing I wanted to bring up is the one common issue that is brought to me as a therapist is issues with conflict resolution. Either there is a offense or a grudge or a resentment that has built up in your body against somebody else, and it's hard to relieve yourself from. And I come across this a lot, and we don't really get to this place until a lot later, but it is most often a common cycle within that person's relationships around them, where they don't know how to resolve conflict. They have a struggle with resolving conflict. And so they feel like they can't trust people. They don't feel like they have community. They feel like they're alone in life. And all of those things, a lot of the time, because the conflicts that they come across when they are with people never end up getting resolved. And I say this a lot in the therapy room. And I say, intent needs to be clarified, but behavior needs to be corrected. And I think people usually choose one or the other. So let me give you an example. You're in conflict with someone, right? If you only choose to clarify intent but not correct behavior, you are most likely enabling them or not setting good enough boundaries, right? So if, let's say, I'm friends with somebody and they create an event, they have a little party, and I'm not invited, right? And I'm really close to this person, and I believe that they care about me, but I'm the one person that didn't get invited. Now, you can clarify intent, right? It's like, oh, like, hey, why wasn't I included in this? It kind of seems like I was left out. They're like, oh, no, I didn't mean to leave you out. I just forgot. If you just clarify intent, and in that moment, I clarify intent, but no, if we don't correct behavior, if we're not bold enough to correct behavior, that's not actually resolving the conflict. That's just clarifying the intent. What needs to be added is, hey, even if your intent was not to hurt me and was not to leave me out and you just forgot, that behavior still needs to be corrected. You forgetting or that knowing that you had left me out, that still needs to be corrected in the future. Hey, next time, let's not do that. That really hurts my feelings. And that's the thing. If that person is a friend, then they will take that and they will receive that and they will be humble with that, right? Now, the opposite side is if you only correct the behavior, but you don't actually listen to their intent. If you say, hey, you didn't invite me to this thing and you didn't include me and that's wrong, and in the future, you should not do that again. But their intent, it still matters, right? Because you would still be holding a grudge. And this is where a lot of the grudges are held, right? It's you're only looking at the behavior and how it made you feel and not considering the intent at all. And grudges form because of that, right? Like I only see what you did that was wrong. I didn't see your intent. I didn't see your motivation. And because I don't give you even that amount of grace, that starts to build up an anger within me. And that's why I'm saying, like, when you only look at the intent, but you don't correct the behavior, you're not setting boundaries and you're not setting expectations, right? But if you're only looking at the behavior and correcting the behavior, you're actually not looking to forgive or to give grace to this person or even receive reconciliation or resolve the conflict. You just want to be heard and you want the action to be fixed, right? And so if you are holding a conflict, right, with someone, it needs to come with both, where you need to clarify your intent with that person. It's like, hey, like, and I think you would also want it to be done to you if you ever did something wrong, right? It's like, hey, this was my intention. And I hope you can see that my intention was not to hurt you, but also you have to be able to correct your behavior, right? It's like, okay, in the future, I won't do this anymore because I don't want to hurt you, because I don't want to do this to you. And I think over time, like, I have just seen this in the therapy room where people come in either with a lack of boundaries or a struggle with boundaries. And it's because they're like, oh, they didn't mean it though. They don't want, like, I know their heart. And you know where I see it most is with adult children, is their parents hurt them consistently over and over again. And they're like, oh, I just know that they just want to do this for the best of me. They care about me. And like my mom, my dad, they don't want to hurt me. They just want to protect me, right? And sure, 100%, that is their intent, right? And you can understand their intent and you can hear their intent, but that's the thing. If their behavior is not being corrected, you'll still get hurt every single time. And at that point, again, like I said, the lack of boundaries and the lack of expectations that's being communicated, that's going to hurt your relationship in the future. Again, that's not resolving conflict. That's just tolerating the pain that people are putting onto you. Because I don't doubt that people, when they hurt you, that they didn't mean to. Very much true that most people in our lives don't mean to hurt us, but their intent is not the end of the line. It is intent and behavior that both need to be corrected. And on the other side, where I see a lot of behavior that's being, I think focusing on behavior rather than intent actually goes across the board. But where I see that most is in marriages. Because I think once you're like in, and I do couples therapy too, so it's very fun. But like when I see couples come together, and a lot of the times it's like, you did this, like you never throw out the trash, or you never think of me on our anniversaries or on special events. You haven't taken me out in a long time. You don't listen to me. And it's a lot of these behaviors that they want corrected, but they don't actually sit with their partner and ask them about their intent and actually believe them. It's like, oh, like, babe, I'm just really tired and it's been a lot for me, but I'm really trying to, I really want to. And then they don't believe their partner when they say that. They just want the behavior changed. But that humility to listen to someone's intent and believe them and trust them that what they're saying is true, even if the behavior doesn't reflect that, that is a very common thing that I see in relationships, right? And I don't know if this is, or any of these things resonate with you when it comes to your relationships with others, whether you are an intent focused person, because I know people in my life who are one or the other, right? Very intent focused and not wanting to set boundaries and not wanting to set expectations, but also on the other end of the spectrum, have like being so firm on their expectations and on their demands, even to the point where the intention of that person or the heart posture of that person, of the other person, isn't dang, what is going on? cutting grass. It's fine. That's not being considered, right? And that's the thing. When we look at Jesus and his walk with people, I think he was able to show a lot of grace, and he was able to show a lot of understanding because he saw the hearts of people. And even if they weren't 100%, that's why like he was able to sit with tax collectors and prostitutes and even like the Pharisees. He was able to sit with anyone and everyone because he knew, and he was able to see their intent and see their heart posture. But he didn't keep them there. He still told them what needed to change. Repent. Like even the correction to the Pharisees. I think he was doing that necessarily because he knew what their intent was. He knew what their heart posture was. And even for like when we come back to us, right? To be like Jesus is to, obviously we're not like Jesus, so we're not like that intuitive with people's intentions, right? And so that's why we need to clarify them. Or else we're going to be in our own heads about what other people's intentions were and how they act towards us. Oh, they wanted me to feel bad. They wanted to leave me out. They wanted to hurt me, right? They don't actually care about me. And that's why they keep forgetting the anniversary. And we assume intent. And so there is no grace, right? But we have to be able to give grace and ask people to clarify their intentions. And then maybe the behavior part will be appropriate to what their intention is, right? Because, yeah, we want to be like Jesus when we face conflicts with our friends and our family and the people around us, right? So step 1, clarify intent. Don't assume intent, right? Clarify intent, whether it be for their benefit or for their loss, doesn't matter. When we assume intent, we can either be very harsh or we can be like stepped all over. And so the first thing to do is, hey, like I was hurt because of this. Was that really your intention? I was really hurt when you did this because it felt like you didn't care about me. Is that true? That you don't care about me? And if they say, no, I do care about you, it's like, okay, then believe them. Believe that they care about you. And so you can go into step 2 and say, okay, then in the future, can you not do this? Or can you do it a different way? And so if you are facing conflict with someone, whether it be a friend or family member or a church member or a authority, if you feel that conflict in you, if you feel that anger or that resentment or that bitterness, go and clarify intent, right? And then talk about how behaviors can be changed and how you cannot be hurt in the future, right? It seems very like convoluted and like complex, but when you bring it down just to those 2 steps, I think it can actually help solve a lot of conflicts within your community, but also humble you a lot. Well, the next thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to my little tip as a therapist is another area of, I guess, like another reason why a lot of my clients come to therapy is because of identity things, right? Low self-esteem. Like I don't feel like I can do anything. I don't feel like I can accomplish anything. And which all very much aligns with a lot of symptoms of anxiety and depression. And that's why you hear those words a lot, anxiety and depression, because it is rooted in a lot of like deeper inner wound things that don't get resolved. And and a lot of times when people do struggle with identity, I work with them with like inner wounds because most of them form when you're in childhood. And the reason why they form in childhood is because when you're a child, you are basically learning what the world is. When you're a kid, you're a sponge, you're learning things about the world and you're learning about yourself. And the people who are your primary caregivers are the people who form those things. And that's why, like, whenever people come to therapy, they either blame their parents for everything or they don't think their parents did anything wrong. It's usually one or the other. And it's only in like very like healthily attached people that they have like a decent relationship with their parents, you know, and they're able to kind of see what the parents did wrong, and but also appreciate them for the things that they did right, which is a blessing. Good on them. But yeah, and it's because the parents' impact, on the way the child sees themselves and sees the world influences the way they see the world and themselves as adults, right? And I know that it's not a direct correlation. There's a lot of different other factors that do contribute to that. But like your first like developmental years play a huge part in that. And you have no idea how many people have come to me and talked to me about how they really don't believe like they're enough. It's such a common thing. It's like, I'm just not enough. Or I just can't do things, right? I'm not capable. And so many people come to me and say that. And it's really because their source of identity has been shaped around that belief system, right? And it can even come from like a small incident that happened, like the seed that happened. Like, I really wanted to try something and I tried it. Like I really tried hard, and my parents didn't even blink an eye. They didn't even congratulate me. They didn't affirm me, right? Or I wanted to try something new, and my parents kept sheltering me because they couldn't believe that I could do it. And that made me scared of everything because I don't believe that I'm capable of doing things because they didn't believe in me. And those seeds they don't just disappear. And that's why like there's something in therapy called narrative therapy, and I love to use it because I'm like, okay, this belief system that you are lacking or that you are not enough. Give me a memory that made you believe that more about yourself over the course of your lifetime. And I would even encourage you to do that right now if you have those thoughts. It's like, what time in my life or what experience in my life really reinforced that belief in me? And I think for me, like, I think the biggest belief about my identity that I had to kind of grow out of is that I needed to earn my identity in a positive way. Like if I needed to believe that I was good, I needed to earn it. So I needed to do something to achieve it, right? Me in and of myself was not good enough, right? If I wanted to be good, I needed to achieve good. And that's why I was very busy for most of my life. And I think it really does stem from like my parents gave me a lot of affirmation when I achieved things, when I did things that they wanted me to do, when they had a certain desire for me and I was able to achieve that they gave me praise, right? And even that, right? Like, I think a lot of parents do that. And that's why a lot of people probably think the same way as me, right? But the seeds that are sown into what you believe about yourself comes from a lot of internal childhood wounds. And so all that to say, my tip is when you feel like there is low self-esteem, or where there is thoughts like depressive thoughts, or thoughts that make you feel like you are inadequate for whatever you're doing, is to ask yourself, what made you believe that? What made you believe that belief? Where did it come from? Where did it start? And what's great is that you don't have to receive that. And this is where the integration with faith comes in. It's, you don't just say like, you know what? No, I rebuke that thought. I rebuke that thought, and that thought is not going to have power over me, and I'm not going to think that I'm worthless. I'm not going to think that I'm not good enough, and it's just going to leave me in Jesus' name. There's a lot of people who believe that that would work. But that's just trying, like, when I see that as a fear of actually looking at what's inside. Let's just push that thought away. But you know what? When you push thoughts away, they don't go away. They just get shoved underneath and they come out at some point, right? But what really needs to happen is not a pushing away of thoughts you don't like, but an evaluation of why they're there in the first place. What made you believe that you were not capable of doing things that are difficult, right? What made you believe that other people are, worth good things and you're not? What made you believe that you're not intelligent? What made you believe that you can't be healthy? What made you believe that, there's a lot of belief systems that are seeds that are embedded within you. And sometimes they just grow because we start to feed them and we start to water them with either the thoughts and beliefs of other people or the expectations and the thoughts of the world, right? And we start to feed them, right? But we got to take those things. And again, with integration, we got to take those things, evaluate where they came from, and ask the Lord to change your heart, right? Lord, help me in my unbelief. Lord, help me take these thoughts that came from other people or these roots that are so deep within me and help me uproot them. Help me believe in something different. But it starts with a looking inwardly to where these came from. And I think, again, a lot of these belief systems are embedded by our parents and our primary caregivers or lack thereof. And so I think in those points too, it's like, God, can you give me a heart of forgiveness? Can you give me a heart of forgiveness for my parents, my grandparents, my siblings who embedded these seeds, destructive, dysfunctional sense of identity? Can you help me forgive them and help me uproot that, right? So that you can remind me and help me believe in a new sense of identity in myself, right? And so I know this is tough. That's why I say this stuff I don't expect people to do on their own. That's why people come into my office and we do these things together, because going into these internal wounds, like, one, there's a lot of resistance, but that's why we sometimes need someone who does this for a living with people and is able to walk with us through it. Because trust me, if you're in a continual cycle where your identity is being doubted again and again and again, it's because the seed is still there. And we start to live in a life where we just expect ourselves to be swayed in our identity all the time. And that's just normal. That's not normal. That is not how things should be, right? It should be that we are grounded and rooted in the identity in Christ, right? In the truth of what our identity is. and not feel like it's always a wavering part of us. And and my hope and my prayer is that you guys are able to live beyond the doubt of how God has created you. Like the identity in Christ, like if you just say, yes, Lord, I accept the identity in Christ. You know what? All these things, yeah, I identify with those things. But the seeds are still there. Those are just words. And those are just like, it's like you're putting it into the world and you're saying that that's that, but you're not doing the actual work for it to become a sustainable part of who you are. And that's why it hurts my heart sometimes when people are like, you know what? Like, no, I'm just going to live like it. Fake it till you make it. But that's running away from the hard thing of doing the internal work, doing the forgiveness of other people, to face the disappointment of the people who you believe had the best intentions. Right? And I really hope that we come to a point where we can look with the Lord and with support into our internal wounds and the lies and the dysfunctional thoughts we have towards our identity, and be able to uproot them and wrestle through them so that we feel more grounded in the identity in Christ. And so obviously that is a little bit of a harder tip, but hopefully that gives you some level of understanding. If you feel like you are going through bouts of like depression or issues with your identity and your self-esteem, that there is a way out of it. There is a way to live beyond that. And that really is doing the hard work of believing that there is hope on the other side of the road, and choosing to reflect on some of those belief systems that you've created, and that other people have instilled in you, and maybe taking out some of those seeds that have been planted within you and that have been growing. Now, the last little tip that I have is based on all my friends with anxiety. All my little friends with anxiety. I know we have a lot of different people who manifest anxiety in different ways, but you know who you are. My friends who are a little anxious, little people who are worried about every little thing and kind of have a lot of ruminating thoughts and struggle with staying focused and staying grounded because there's a lot going up in here. And I like to describe it as there's a lot of entanglement that's happening here. A lot of thoughts that are overlapping each other, and you can't really focus because everything is something that needs to be worried about. Everything is a concern. And because what if anything goes wrong, right? What if work goes wrong? What if friends go wrong? What if my health goes wrong? And there's a lot of things going up here, right? And a lot of my clients come in because they don't know how to control that. They're like, I cannot cope and I cannot survive because there's just so much mental turmoil coming from my anxious thoughts, right? And I've heard a lot of people in the Christian space being like, just take captive of those thoughts. Just take them captive and don't let any anxious thoughts. Do not be anxious. Just don't be anxious. Oh my gosh. Like that pisses me off so much. That pisses me off so much because it's so like diluting the experience. It is like, so it's not helping the person feel seen. It's okay. I just won't be anxious then. like, like it's not that simple. And understanding the root of where that comes from is also kind of like my second tip, where it's like looking into like why those anxious thoughts are there. That's a part of it. But I think my third tip is actually very simple. It's what I say a lot. Follow the thought. Now, I'll explain to you what it means. So, whenever I get an anxious client and we're kind of working through all the different things, like and exploring what makes them anxious, I would be like, okay, so give me a what if. Because usually anxiety comes with what if statements, right? What if this? What if that? What if this goes wrong? What if, what if I, again, extreme anxiety leads to things like OCD and, like borderline personality disorder. Like it leads to a lot of different personality disorders. But anxiety, like that you experience, it's also on a spectrum. If you're on the higher end of anxiety, these what if thoughts can consume you. Like you can go into hours and hours just thinking about scenarios that 90% of the time do not come true. But it's because of the fear that is within your body and the fear that again, the world is a dangerous place or something is going to go wrong or you're going to mess up in some way. Those what if things are hard to let go of because you truly believe that there's a little bit of a possibility that it will. Because even if you tell an anxious person, like, oh, the what if thought, okay, but look at the probability of that. Just look at the probability. It's not very probable. So maybe you just shouldn't think about the what if because it's not very possible. But in their mind, it's like, but there's a little bit of a possibility that it might. And that's what keeps them going. That's what keeps the thoughts going of like, okay, but like I still need to think about it because if it does happen, I should be prepared. I need to be emotionally prepared for that. And there's a desire for safety, and thinking about that actually makes them feel safer, right? Which seems so backwards because it's like, okay, like if these what if thoughts and these anxious thoughts are causing you so much turmoil, why don't you just turn them off or just not think about them? But it's because they play a function in their mind. That when you're anxious, when you think about it in advance and when you kind of give it some extra thought, then you're prepared for it and you're emotionally feeling like you're more in control of what might be in the unknown. And so that's why these what if thoughts are consistently running through your mind because it gives you safety. And so when we are feeling anxious and when we are having anxious thoughts, it's not really about trying to get rid of those thoughts. It's about trying to find safety in your mind and in your body, right? And so for all my anxious friends, I guess I have tip 3A and B. So the first one would be, again, like I said, follow the thought. So the what if thought is, let's give an example. What if I lose my job? But even, you know what, let's even simplify it. I've seen it like, what if I make a mistake on this report? Or what if I, make a mistake in a task at work the next day? I'm like, and there's a lot of anxiety about that. Like, what if I screw up tomorrow? What if I mess up tomorrow? Okay, follow the thought. So what if you do mess up tomorrow? Let's follow it. Okay, so if I mess up, then my boss is going to be angry at me. Okay, so your boss is going to be angry at you. Now what? I lose my job. Okay, so you lose your job. Now what? I won't have money to pay my bills. Okay, you won't have money to pay your bills. Now what? I'll have to ask my parents for help. Okay, you ask your parents for help. And then I stay at their house. Okay, you stay at their house. Now what? And then I have to find another job. I'm like, okay. Then we just keep going. And then they start to realize, even if the worst case scenario happens, they're fine. That they're safe. Right? Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Oh, okay, if you screw up tomorrow and all those things actually happen, it's banking on the fact that what if, that little percentage of it, what if it will happen? Okay, let's follow it. Because I think that it's more of a feeling of fear and a feeling of unsafety rather than the thought. And so once we get to a place where they feel safe, where it's like, okay, we keep following the thought until you believe that you're safe. Until you're like, yeah, you know what? I guess it would be okay, even if I did mess up tomorrow. Because you actually follow the thought into the what ifs, all the possible what ifs. And we get to a point where you actually do feel safe. And there's some times when, like, their worst case scenario is death, right? Like, what if I'm really scared to, drive? And I'm scared because what if I mess up, and then what if I get in a car crash and I die? It's like, okay. And that becomes an existential thing, right? It's like, okay, so then are you actually afraid of dying and what that means and what that is? And let's have a conversation about that. Let's talk about that, right? Until the idea of death or idea of not having control over death, they feel somewhat safer with, right? Again, it's about the safety. It's not about the thought, right? And so that's what the follow through with the thought, that's what it does. That's the point of it, right? And maybe that's something that you can do for yourself if you're feeling anxious, if you're stuck in the what ifs. Focus on one and follow through, right? And honestly, that's helped me personally a lot. Because at the end of the day, you realize there's a lot of things you can't control. But if you follow through with a thought, you realize that, you know what? I have a plan if that does happen. And you become safer within yourself, right? That you build a little bit more self-confidence and strength in yourself, knowing that you are able to get past whatever hurdle this what if might bring. And so follow through with the thought. Number 2 is you also need safety in your body. Because I don't know if you guys, like, people with anxiety, you will know that when you feel anxious, your body becomes stiff. Your body becomes tense. And it's because of what we call a fear response in your body. And it's because your body's trying to protect itself. Again, safety. It's trying to be safe, right? And so, especially when there's a threat, like, anxiety is an issue. Feeling anxious is not an issue, okay? Because anxiety is something that is more chronic and something that is less controllable. Feeling anxious is what God created us to feel because we need to run away from dangerous things, right? We need to be cautious. And that's why when a threat comes by, we start to tense up because we need to be ready to either fight them or run away. And that's where our body goes. And so the other element of dealing with anxiety is feeling safe within our bodies, right? Which means we need to calm our bodies down because we are believing that there is a threat that's not there, right? Again, with the what ifs, it's because they believe that there is a threat, that there is something terrible that's going to happen. And I used to feel that a lot, like in my early 20s, where I would tell my sister this. I would be like, I feel like something bad's going to happen out of nowhere. And she's like, don't say that. Oh my gosh. Because that would trigger her anxiety. But in random moments, I would just be like, I feel like something bad's going to happen. But I didn't know that was anxiety. I thought I was just crazy. Where I was like, I just feel like something bad's going to happen. I just feel like something terrible is going to happen. And our bodies start to respond to that. And that's why silence and solitude, prayer, meditation, and resting our bodies and giving our bodies a time to kind of feel safe is so important. You know, and I love that our spiritual disciplines help a lot with our mental health coping and stuff, where, sitting in silence and solitude, really, you can't sit in silence and solitude while being tense the entire time. Eventually, you're going to have to take a deep breath and, let yourself be still. And I would say the combination of those two will really help when it comes to feeling anxious. Follow the thought, find safety in your mind, but also allow your body to feel some level of safety. Feel safety in your body. And obviously there's a bunch of different exercises, grounding exercises to kind of help you get there. But if you're feeling anxious, my tip A and B is to try and feel safety in your mind and in your body, and give it that time to rest, you know. And once you kind of get in the habit of doing that, you'll notice that a lot of your anxiety will at least recede a little bit. It'll get better a little bit. And yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's definitely harder than just saying, I rebuke this thought. It's definitely a lot harder, but definitely more effective. So yeah, those are the 3 things that I have for you when it comes to dealing with mental health concerns, issues. Just 3 tips for you. If you didn't know this before you listened, I hope you take it and you try and practice it. I would say if you go to a therapist, even if you go for, people think like, oh, if I go to therapy, I have to go forever. You don't. You really do not. You can even do like 3-4 sessions and you'll be fine. But you go in with purpose, you go in with a goal, you go in with a desire for direction, and they'll do that for you. And it's really just about wanting to learn more and have a better, I guess, understanding of how to cope and how to deal with some of these mental health struggles and issues that you might be facing. But also, if you are someone who already kind of knows this stuff or has an idea of what their mental health journey looks like and what it could look like, I just hope this is a good reminder of that. Just because you're wrestling through these things doesn't mean that you're lacking faith. Doesn't mean that you're not trusting God enough, and so that's why you have all these what if thoughts. It's genuinely a, like, just like how our physical health, when we're like, if we're injured, it's not your fault. You know, it's not your fault that you're injured. It's not your fault that you're not healing fast enough. It's not like, no one's gonna be like, oh, you're lacking faith because your arm is still broken. It's like, no, it's healing. Give it some time. You know, it's the same thing with your mental health. It took you a long time to get to where you are now. So it might take just as much or at least some time for you to heal from it. But that's the thing. Just like how again, let's use a broken arm example. If you break your arm and you let it heal for like 3 weeks and you start using it again and you try to push it and you try to, all this stuff, it's not going to heal properly. And you're going to have to readjust it and do it again. Right? And so I would say it's like you won't notice until you're at a point when you're like, dang, when's the last time I had an anxious thought? You won't notice until you're at a place where you're like, oh, shoot, I'm reflecting on my life and I actually feel a lot more confident in myself. Because a healthy mind is where God wants you to be. And he'll walk with you through that journey, right? But the healing does take a journey, right? And we just need to know what that journey looks like. And Jesus is literally beside us the entire time. He has not left, right? But we still have to walk through that journey. And I hope that you feel comforted and you feel seen and you feel educated. This is the first time I've really used my area of expertise in a podcast episode, but I hope it gives you the push that if you want to know more, that you go seek a therapist who will work with you and who will help you work through a lot of these things. And yeah, I know that it is a tough journey for a lot of people to work through this, but yeah, use your resources, use your community, and use these tips. And I hope that you feel more and more comfortable and more safe in your mind and body because of it. And so, anyways, I am so grateful for all of you. I am so excited for where God is going to take you and what He's going to do through you this week. And I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your morning, evening, night. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.